If you are building apps with Compose Multiplatform, you already know the power of writing shared UI code once and running it on multiple platforms. But there is one common challenge developers face. How do you implement something like an image picker for Android, web, and desktop without breaking the multi-platform structure? In this video, I'm going to show you how to build a clean, scalable, multi-platform image picker using shared logic and platform-specific implementations where necessary. We'll define a common interface in shared code, then implement the actual image selection differently for Android, web, and desktop. So by the end, you will have a reusable solution you can plug into your own Compose multi-platform projects. So let's get started. Hello, I'm Mugumi Ali, and today we're going to be implementing a multi-platform image picker. And we shall be able to write an expect in our commonMain, where we shall be now sharing and creating an actual implementation, for example, in Android, and also for the JS, we shall do the same thing, and for the JVM, for the desktop target, and also for the WebAssembly target, we shall be doing the same. We shall be able to implement the actual implementations. So now let's navigate to our directory, and then we shall have to create a new file, and we can call it ImagePicker. So what this will do, let me first move this. Okay, so what this will do, it will act as a composable that will launch a platform-specific image picker. Then we shall be able to implement the same things in the rest of the platforms. So now let's implement a composable. Hit enter. Then we shall declare an internal expect function, and we shall call it image picker. So as earlier said, this composable will be launching the platform specific image picker in a way that we shall be able to implement the specific implementations on every platform. Yeah, so now it will take in some arguments, and we shall put in the show, which will be a boolean. It will be a boolean. Yep. It will be a boolean. We shall also include allow multiple, and it will also be a boolean. All right, so what this does, it will be able to control the visibility of the picker. So when you click on the button, can be able to show it, and also for the multiple boolean to be able to show when the user clicks on many images. Yeah, so now we shall also implement another argument, which will be an unselected, and this will take in a list of images. So we shall pass in the images, which will be a list, and these images will be as byte arrays. So we shall put a byte array, passing a byte array. And this will be a unit function. All right, let's click there. So now after implementing all this, now we shall have to implement and create for the expect it shows the what, like for example, what do we want, and then the actual shows the how is it implemented. So now that's what we are trying to do. In this case, we are going to implement the expect for each platform, and now we are going to begin with one for JVM. So we also do the same for the others, and I'm going to go for Android. We will also go back. We shall also do the same for the JS main. Okay, so we shall also go back and also do the same for the web assembly. All right, so now we've been able to implement all the other classes. We've created them. because Android Studio does it better, so it can get them for you automatically. So after implementing all this, we shall have to implement the one for Android. Let's start with the one for Android. In this case, let's just click on our image picker that was created automatically. So inside this, we shall see that we have all our parameters where the show will control the visibility. We have the allow multiple, where if the user can select multiple images. We also have the lambda invoked with a list of byte arrays, which returns an empty list in this case when cancelled. So now we shall initialize a new variable. Shall create a new variable, so its context is equal to local context dot current. So this gets the current activity context safely. Yeah, that's what this line literally does. So we are going to continue and initialize a multiple launcher. Okay, very multiple launcher. And this will be equal to remember launcher for activity result. Remember launcher for activity. Okay, and so this remembers the launcher across recompositions. Let's first remove this. Okay, so yeah, this we always remember the launch across recompositions within the application. Okay, so after declaring this, we can be able to give it its parameters, and we take in a contract, and this contract shall take in the activity result contracts. Activity result contracts dot pick multiple visual media. Hit enter with some brackets. All right. So can continue on result. You also need an on result. So this is always called when user finishes the pick. Okay, so now this takes in a lambda, which is not really. This should be a list because there's multiple. So we shall take in a list of URIs in this case. Shall pass in a URI. Shall pass in a URI. Give it a lambda. We need to import this. Alt enter. Yeah, so we've imported it. Now this will okay. So we shall also initialize another variable, and we shall call it bytes list. Bytes list is equal to URIs dot map not null. Then we shall pass in a URI as lambda. All right. Oh, I think we messed up with something here. So now what this does is it converts each URI to a byte array, or it just skips if it fails. Yeah, so that's exactly what this line does. So let's first, so we shall initialize, we shall pass in our context dot content resolver dot open input stream. Okay, hit enter. Then we shall pass in our URI. All right. So after finishing this, let's first remove this one. It's giving us an error. Okay, so now we shall also put null check. Then we shall dot use. So we shall pass in an it dot read n bytes. No, dot read bytes. Yeah, that's it. So now, in this case, we shall see that all this line will be opening the stream from the content provider and then reading all bytes and auto closing the stream. So this context resolver, that's what we'll be doing, and then the use and the read bytes, it will always be reading all the bytes and then closing the stream. So now on image selected, we shall pass in the bytes list. All right, so This will send loaded images to callback. So after finishing all this multiple launcher, we shall also try to implement the single launcher. So while single launcher, is equal to, remember, launcher for activity. Okay, so finishing that, shall do the same thing, although in this case we shall be dealing with a single URI. So now we shall pass in the contract. This contract will be the activity result contracts. Okay, dot pick visual media shall open now with brackets, then comma. So we shall see that. So we shall also pass in the on result, and in on result we shall pass in our URI. In this case now it will need to be a list of URIs. And okay, extends to URI. Then we shall pass in our lambda. Then inside we shall have to declare a new variable. But before that, what this does, it is called when the user finishes. Yeah, so now let's create our variable. Our val bytes is equal to URI. Let's put a null check dot let, put our lambda, then context resolver dot open input stream. We shall pass in our URI in this case. So what this does is it opens the input stream. Yeah, this opens the input stream. So we shall have to also provide a way of reading the bytes and auto closing, like the same way we did for the multiple launcher. So it dot read bytes, okay. So yeah, after that, this one will just be reading the bytes and then auto closing. So we shall now have to provide a way like that will always be returning the list. So on image is selected, if the bytes, or in this case if the bytes are not null, okay, not to null, then return the list. Now we shall return a list of bytes. We shall return a list. Is passing our bytes. All right. Else, if it is null, then what should we return? We shall return an empty list. So this means that this line will always be returning a list. So whatsoever, if we have an empty or we don't have. So I think I have a mistake here. Let me try to remove this typo. It should be launcher. Okay, so now we've finished implementing the select launcher. So this is only used for single when multiple is equal to false. Now let's create our launcher effect. Shall pass in the boolean show. We pass in as our argument, and inside our launch effect, our launch effect will always just be triggered when the show becomes true. So shall put an if statement, show that will inside we shall also declare a variable request. This will be equal to the pick visual media request. Okay, and then inside we shall pass in an activity result. I don't know why it's not bringing the import activity result
contracts. Let me first see. Oh, I think I made a mistake in the spelling. Okay, activity result contracts. Okay, now I want to go pick visual media dot image only. So this will restrict to images only, but in most cases you can even put images and videos. So this is for only images. That's why I just considered for images only, because in this tutorial that's the only thing we are focused on. So you can also give it, let me first show you how you can do it for the images and video. So you can choose image and video, just in case you want to be able to choose both and then load them. Yeah, so for now, let's just go with image only. Then after declaring our request, now we can decide if allow multiple. Okay, so we want to choose the correct launcher. If allow multiple, then we shall bring in the multiple dot launch, then request. We shall request it. The single launcher to call one image, and shall also pass in the request. All right, so now we've been able to implement our launcher that will trigger the picker when show becomes true. So after declaring, now that means for multiple, to show the multiples, launcher, then we pass in the request, then for the single, it will also do the same. Now, so after declaring all this, so we shall have now to see the way of how we can make this be seen in the UI. Now, let's just come and so now we shall just create a new data class. Yeah, with a new data class in our apps class. We shall call it image file, and we shall pass in a variable name, in this case, which is a string. We shall also pass in val data, which is a byte array, in this case. So now what this does, it will hold the data of the picked image. Yeah, so it is both, it is used to store both the name, which is in this case the key, and then the raw bytes. Yeah, so now we shall have to, this is the default code that comes when you download the project from GitHub. Now what we shall do, let me first remove the whole of this. Okay, let me think. I'm missing one bracket here. Okay. So what we are going to do, we are going to declare some few variables here. We declare pick images. Pick images is equal to remember new state of, then shall pass in the image first. This is just an observable list of images. Mutable state of list of. Okay, then inside we shall pass in, shall put our image file. Okay, so now this will only hold the list of images. So let's also initialize another one, show picker, okay, by remember, we shall pass mutable state of, then shall put in false. This only holds, or controls the when the picker appears. Let's also initialize another variable. Now we shall just call it allow multiple by remember. Mutable state of, and just pass it to true. For now we're just going to hard code it, but in production this could be used to simulate, like to do, like when to allow multiple images, we use this one here. Okay, so we shall have to call our image picker in this case, and we shall pass in the show picker. Okay, we also have our allow multiple. This is for allowing picking several images, but we just hard coded it to true, so it will always pick images. Then shall also pass in when on selected. This will be called when the user finishes picking. So images, okay, so hit enter. This will put our show picker is equal to false. When images are selected, shall just put it to false, just to close the pick after selection. So yeah, this will be closing the pick after selection, and no, sorry. Okay, so let's try to process each picked byte array. So we shall say images dot for each. Have to iterate. Then we shall pass in the data as a lambda. Okay. Then we shall initialize a new variable. Let's call it file name. Will be equaling to. Let's use a string in this case. img underscore. Okay, so let's pass in the picked images. This using picked images dot size plus 1. So this is a simple incremental name. Yeah, so this we shall assign each picked image a name. So this is how we shall be incrementing those names. So picked images dot add image file. Okay, then into the image file shall pass in the file name and the data. Okay, so now this will be used to add to the displayed list. So now we've finished implementing our image picker. So now the next thing will be to create how we are going to be handling, like if you enter the image, or if you pick the image, what happens. So now let's try to create the scaffold. Scaffold, we need a top up bar. We need a top up bar. Top bar, it's a top bar. Then we shall put in a center align top up bar. Pass in a title and text. Now pass in the gallery multiplatform. Shall give it a font weight. Let's put this font weight dot bold. Okay. We also need to give our up bar color. So this will be equal to top up bar. Shall pick the colors from the top up bar defaults. Then dot center aligned top up bar colors. Okay. So inside these colors, we shall have to pass in a container color from material theme dot color scheme surface variant dot, we have to give them alpha and around 0.5f. Okay, so now we also need to here we have an error. No, this is an experimental material API, so let's import that. Then after that, we shall have to create our floating action button to trigger the picker in this case. So we shall create it. Floating action button is equal to, then let's pass in an extended, because we also have want to have an icon and also a text. So it's passing our extended floating action button, side text in a non-click. And this is to show picker equal to true. So we click on it to have to show the picker. That's why we have to assign it to true. And we'll pass in an icon. Let's import it. Is equal to icons. So these icons are from material 3 extended. I'll put default dot add comma shall also need our content description. We shall put it to null in this case. Okay, then we shall also add a text, and this text will be pick image. Okay, so after this, we need to put some padding values in our scaffold. Then we shall need a box in the scaffold. Pass in a few parameters. Modifier. Let's pick this. Modifier is equal to modifier dot fill max size. Fill max size. Dot padding. Padding. Okay, let's try. No, this isn't supposed to be inside here. Let's try to remove it. Dot padding. Shall give it a padding. Then passing the padding values. And this also we need a background. Should I just assign it the default material 3, not shapes, material theme, from material theme dot color scheme dot background. Shall give it a default background from material theme. Okay, so inside this, now we shall have to see a way if we have the images or if the images are empty. So if images are empty, what will we do? So we shall have to show an empty state in this case. Then we just have to show an empty state. Maybe if they are not, then what will we show? So let's try to put something here like empty state. Maybe we pass in some modifier. Modifier is equal to modifier dot align and then we just put it to center. So just align whatever empty state we are going to build in the center, as we shall be seeing. So align, okay, this is about that, then dot center. Okay, then else. So if we don't have an empty state, that means we have to put our images. So let's try to also put something maybe like an image grid, So in image grid, we shall have to pass in the images that we would have picked. So images will be equal to the picked images. And we shall also maybe have our own remove when we maybe want to remove the image that we've just loaded within that grid that we would have created. So we'll remove, and this will pass in a lambda. So now we have to create these two functions that will be functioning very well as we need them to do. So what we are going to do, we're just going to come outside the application function, then we shall declare a composable, then we shall call this function empty state. The empty state, remember we passed in our modifier, okay. Then we also shall give it a body. All right, so shall also do the same for the image grid. So we shall create our function image grid, then we shall pass in a list of images. List of images. And we shall also pass in our lambda that will be invoked when you want to remove the image from the grid. So this is a unit function, okay? Okay, so now after doing this, we shall have to implement our logic of the empty state. So let's first put in some UI. So let's create a column, and in this column you're going to pass in horizontal alignment. You're going to give it a horizontal alignment of alignment dot center horizontally. Shall also give it a modifier is equal to modifier as a placeholder, just in case we want to do some other customizations. So let's try to include an icon image, which is an image vector. In this case, we shall pass in icons dot default dot add face. So we shall use a face icon, but these icons are from the extended library. So we shall also give it a content description. This shall assign it to null. Okay, and also need a modifier, which can be modifier dot size. We shall give it 80 dps, and also need to give it some tint color from material 3. We shall just get it from material dot color scheme dot primary. Just give the primary color with an alpha. So dot copy, then we shall give it an alpha of 0.2 f. Alright, so we shall also have to include our text, just in case, to display an icon and the text if the guy is empty. So it's just like your gallery is empty. So just in case if our gallery is empty, you'll have to display a face icon and your gallery is empty. Then the style, shall just shall use material theme dot color scheme dot on surface. You shall give it a copy in alpha of 0.6 f. Okay, so after that I'll give it a, oh sorry, I even made a mistake. Okay, material theme, I think I made some mistake here. This was supposed to be the color, and then this was supposed to be the style. Okay, so this is the style. Style is from material 3 dot typography. Just get from the typography. Should I just give it the body large. Alright, so in this case we are done. We should just come and implement our image grid. So we shall have to use our lazy vertical grid. Use our lazy vertical grid, and this takes in columns. But in this case, we just want to use an adaptive. We want to use our adaptive way. So we shall pass in the grid cells, then we shall give the adaptive. Then the adaptive shall put in the mean size so that the columns can be responsive. Let's just use 128 dps. And shall also pass in content padding. Passing the content padding of around 16 dps. Then we shall post a horizontal arrangement dot space by. We shall pass in 12 dps. So I also need a vertical arrangement, and say arrangement dot space by shall also give it 12 dps. Then inside our vertical grid, then that means you'll need to pass in like a cut, but in form of items. Then we shall pass in our images. Then we shall give each image a key. We shall give it a key. This is how they are loading. So a key, then we shall pass in the name. In this case, they will be acting as the ID for each image. Okay, we shall pass in the name. Let me hope we've imported the right one. Okay, so now shall in the brackets now try to pass in an image card, but we haven't created the card yet. So let's try to create a card. We shall just declare a composable, create a composable here. And try to create a composable function. Shall name it image card. And this image card will take in an image file, and also to take in an image file, and also a non-remove lambda. Okay, that shall be invoked when we click a certain icon for removing the image. So now we can easily call it here image card, and we can pass in our images. So I have to create a lambda and pass in the image file. Okay, give it a lambda, then here we just post in our image file. Right, that should be okay. Then also pass in the on remove. Okay, on remove is equal to, also pass in on remove as a function, and then we pass in the image file. Okay, so now it should work as expected. Now we are going to implement the card, the UI of the card. Let's just try to create the card, and then the card shall pass in the modifier. And the modifier shall give it an aspect ratio of around 1f. This is going to be square in this case, so we shall also clip it to have rounded shape of around 12 dp for all corners. We shall also give it an elevation. Shall give it an elevation from card defaults dot card elevation. Here is the default one of 4 dps. Okay, so just give it a body, and we are going to create a box in this case. Shall create a box that will hold the start image and also the remove button. So let's create a new variable, let's call it bitmap is equal to remember. This is for caching the decoded bitmap. That's why we use the remember. So remember image file dot data. Okay. So now this decodes the bytes to image bitmap only once. That's why we use the remember key. Okay, so now shall also pass in the image file in the try image file.data.decode image bitmap. So this is used for multi-platform decoding. Yeah, this will be used for multi-platform decoding. Then we shall also add a catch block if there is any exception. Catch block exception. We shall just pass in a null. So we shall handle corrupted or maybe invalid images within this block. Yeah. So after that, we shall implement the image bitmap. Shall show the image. Now in this case, bitmap is equal to bitmap. We shall give it a content description. The description was null. Oh, but we have the name, so let's just give the name. Image file.name. Then we shall also create a modifier. We'll be equal to modifier dot fill max size, so that our image can be able to fill the whole size. So we shall also create a content scale. You shall just content scale, then just crop the image so that it can fill the square and crop the edges. Alright, so after finishing this, I'm having here an error, so I think we shall need to first show the image if decoding is succeeded. So now we need like an if function here. So we're just going to create an if function if the bitmap is not null. If the bitmap is not null, then what should we do? We shall pass in our image that will contain the bitmap. Okay. Yeah, so now the L is gone. Now else, so we shall provide a fallback placeholder just in case on decode failure. So we shall pass in a box. Let's assign the modifier to fill max size. You can also give it an alignment. So we shall give it a content alignment. Dot center. Okay, so we also need a body. In this case, maybe let's just pass in an icon. Shall pass in an icon from icons dot default dot face. We shall pass in an arrow as in the content description and also give it a tint of gray, of color which is gray in this case. Now also need a button or a move button. So we shall pass in an on click, which will give it on remove. Then shall pass in a modifier is equal to modifier dot align. Shall give it an alignment. Give it alignment dot alignment. Not really. Need to give it an alignment dot center. For now, let's try to give it a center alignment. We also need to give it some padding. Just give it some 4 dps, and we shall see then dot background color, give it black with an alpha of around 0.47 f. Also this background, we can try to give it a rounded corner shape. which is 50%, so now it will be circular in this case. All right, so let's try to give it a body. In our body, we can just maybe pass in an icon or whatever. Can even be having an image, but in our case, we're passing an icon. But let's first give the size of 24 dps. So let's after that, we're going to give it an icon, icons dot default dot clear. Okay. Then the content description should just pass in the remove. They should also give it a tint of white, so color dot white. And we need to also specify the size of our icon. In this case, we shall just give it 16 dp, so modifier dot size 16 dot dps. And in this case, we've finished implementing our image card, which we have been able to implement all the empty states. And now, yeah, our composable is fully functional. So we shall see how to try to complete this by putting pick images dot remove it. All right, so now that also marks the end of our video. So now what we are going to do is that we are going to change this alignment. We're going to change it from center. Let's first change it from center top end because it will look really good here. Okay, so after implementing this, we also need to maybe give our picker some dark colors. So we shall use material theme dark colors. So okay, let's try to get the color scheme dark. In the dark color scheme. So what this does, it will make sure that all our UI renders within the dark theme. Yeah. So after we've implemented all this, we shall try to run our application, and then we see how our image picker will be looking like when it comes to the phone. Let me first remove this. Okay. So we shall try to wait, and after it is complete with its build, we shall be able to display a good, nice looking image picker. Okay, it has finished its first launch. Okay, so you can be able to see it how it is looking. Let's try to pick an image. Try to pick an image. Okay, so we can try to pick this one. As you can see, it can be able to pick one image, and you can also remove it as per the logic that we implemented. And we can also as well pick many images. So let's try to pick all the images, and we select. Okay. If we select all the images, they will try to load. Okay, so now we can see it has loaded all the images that we've selected. So in this case, we have been successfully able to implement our Android image picker using an actual implementation in our cross multi-platform logic. Okay. Now we are going to try to implement the actual image picker for the desktop target, and we shall see that as per now, we shall have also this flag for triggering the dialog, and as we saw on Android, and also this allow multiple for picking a single or multiple file selection, and also on images selected, where it will be able to return images bytes. So now let's try to create a launched effect, and we shall pass in the show so that it can trigger when the show value changes. and inside we shall pass in an if function, and we shall pass in a show. So we have to proceed. If the show is equal to true, then we shall create a variable dialog is equal to file dialog file dialog. So what this does is that it creates a native file chooser dialog. So on desktop. So let's try to create a null. Okay, we shall pass in a null as a frame. Shall pass in a null as a frame. Shall make it nullable. Okay. So what this means, it's an operand frame. So this it is always for the other floating button. And we shall also pass in the title, the dialog title. Put in select images, and we also need a mode. So we shall pass in file dialog dot load, and yeah, this mode is responsible for opening and loading the files. So right now we shall try to apply. Okay, so inside this apply, shall pass in the is multiple mode. Okay, is multiple mode will be equaling to allow multiple. So this is just for enabling the multiple selection if it is requested. Yeah. So also we need to create some simple client side filter for the images. So we shall set file name. File name C filter. Set file name filter. Okay, so shall try to use a lambda. Okay, it's the name. Then inside our lambda, we shall create a variable val lowercase is equal to name dot lowercase. All right, so as we can see, we've been able to implement the function, which is just a simple client side filter for the images. And we also have this line here, which is just for case insensitive check. And so let's try to implement some other common extensions. So shall put lowercase dot end with. Shall try to put in some extensions that we'll be dealing with for the images. So now we have one JPG. So your image can be JPG or lowercase dot ends with. So we always put the file extensions, the image extensions. So now we can also have a JPEG, which is like an alternative. Yeah. So the JPEG, maybe you might also want to put a PNG. So lowercase dot ends with PNG. All right. So now this means it also supports the PNG. And let's try to implement also like how we shall be showing the dialog. So we shall say dialog dot is visible is equal to true. So this will just control the visibility of the dialog. So all right, so also need to see how we can get the array of the selected objects. So let's try to create another variable called selected files is equal to dialog dot files
log.files.map, and I'll pass in an it dot read bytes. All right, so what this does is that it will get the array of selected file objects, and then our map will just read each file fully into the byte array. So yeah, after implementing this, we shall have to implement the way we shall deliver the results. So on image selected, shall pass in the selected files that we just initialized there. So now what this will do is that it will deliver the results to the callback. So we have to know that if the user cancels, files is empty array. So we shall just send an empty list. Yeah, so now we've just successfully implemented the image picker for the JVM. So we shall try to run it and we shall see how it looks like. So after running, it will be able to show us some good UI with some empty state placeholder. Shall I try to pick some images, and let's try to navigate to the desktop, and we go to, okay, let's first look for images. Okay, so we are in the images. We can try to select our images, and as you can see now, the images are already loaded into our application. As you can see, they are really beautiful. You can even scroll, you can try to enlarge it, and it will always be adaptive. And yeah, even you can remove, and you click this button, you can be able to remove some of the images, and you can see now we've successfully implemented our gallery multi-platform image picker. Shall also try to implement the JS target. So we see we still have our show boolean, we have our allow multiple, so have our on selected. So now, without wasting time, we shall try to implement our launched effect. Our launched effect will pass in the show, and the value changes, and then we also have our if. So this is the same as how we are doing it in the JVM. So in the show shall pass in a val. Okay, let's create another variable. In this case, for the JS target, shall pass in, okay, val input is equal to document. So this is just for the blows. In this case, so to create element, element, we shall pass in a local name, which we shall call, maybe let's put an input, and this will be as, shall I send it as an HTML input element. All right, HTML input element. So now what this does is like it will create a hidden input file. Yeah, this will be able to create a hidden input file. So now let's try to see how we can constrain this. So we shall have to have a way of saying that, okay, you know what, we need to pick a file. So we shall say input.type is equal to, so we need to pick a file. That file can be a video, it can be an image, it can be whatever. But then in this case, we want just to create an image. So input.accept. So we shall be only accepting images. So we shall pass in images. Okay, so let's put an image. Oh, we have an error here. So let's pass in an image. Okay, use star, then we close our quotations. Okay, put a star. Okay, because now if we don't do this, then it will be able to pick even videos. So we also have to specify if we want to allow multiple selections. So input.multiple is equal to allow multiple. So yeah, we finished to put. So now here we shall be able to pick any file from our browser when we select. Then now this will only be accepting videos. Yeah, I mean images. That's why we specify for images, and we shall also allow multiple image selections if requested. All right. So after implementing all our logic, let's try to see the way how we can fire when the user selects. So we shall try to create an event. So input.onChange.
and on change equaling 2, shall create our lambda. So now what this does, like, it will be fired when the user selects the files. Yeah, so let's try to create an event, the lambda. Okay, then create a new variable, val files is equal to event.target as, okay, as, should I have an object as HTML input element. Okay, hit enter here. Okay, not, then we shall pass in the files. Okay, so now this after that we shall try to create an if the files are not null, if the files are not null, and files dot length is greater than 0, then we shall return something. Now what this line does is it checks the file list. Yeah, this checks the file list. And also now this, it checks if the files are okay, like if we have some files and the number of the files is greater than 0, so what should we do? If that is like that, then we have to create another variable, shall call it a byte arrays, and this will be a mutable list of where we shall pass in our byte array, and we shall be able to see that this line will be responsible for collecting all results. So let's create another variable, call it the processed, okay, to count and know when all are done. Okay, so just initialize it as a 0, because we shall be able to also call it in, oh sorry, initialize, that's why we use a var. Okay, so now we need to create a loop. So for I in 0 until files dot length, so okay, so what this loop does is, like, for it has to loop over each selected file. Yeah, so now we shall also have to see a way of creating a new reader. So let's create another variable, call it reader, is equal to file reader. Okay, import that. Okay, so we shall be able to create a new file reader per file. So yeah, we create a new file reader per file within our loop. So we can also call when the reading finishes. So reader.onload is equal to, let's create a lambda function, and the lambda function shall call it, we shall pass in load event, load event, then so this I shall try to pass in a new variable, call it val buffer is equal to load event dot target dot as dynamic dot as result dot result, not as dot result results. All right, then as array as array buffer. All right, Now, this line we've just implemented here, we'll be able to get the raw data. Yeah, so when the reader triggers the node, shall be able to get the raw data. So let's try to make an if loop. So if the buffer is not equal to null. So in simple terms, if we successfully read some data, okay, so if the buffer is not null, then we shall call the bytes.add int 8. Let me see, int not b, int 8 array. All right, take array, then we shall pass in the buffer, then dot unsafe cast, and shall also pass in a byte array. Let's try to import this byte array. So yeah, now what this does is like it will always be converting the Kotlin byte array. Yeah, it will always be converting the Kotlin byte array. And now that is just to, if successfully read, then we return this, which will convert the Kotlin, which will convert to Kotlin byte array. So now we shall have now to see if bring our processed. So meanwhile, if the condition is true, then we shall put processed plus plus. So one more file, processed. Then if processed now will be exactly equal to files.length, so we're just getting the length of the file, and we shall call the images selected, then we shall just pass in the byte arrays. So now in this case it's like we shall first see if all files finished reading, then we shall deliver a complete list. So if the file finish reading, then complete. Okay, so now we shall also have to create c.read. So we shall start syncing. So read as array buffer, and we shall pass in our files. Okay, files, put our I within our for loop. You can see still have some error here. Maybe let's try to improvise. Oh, sorry, still having an error. We first see where this error is coming from. Operator modifier. So let's try to see if we can put a get. Okay, so now our error is gone. Oh, it's still there. Type mismatch. Okay, now I'll try to just put it like that. Okay, now our error is gone. So now in this case, that will just start the sync of reading files as bytes. So okay, after finishing that, shall see now we shall be needing a way of shall need a way of cancelling, like user cancelling when there are no files. So else shall see on image is selected, passing an empty list. So when the user cancels it, we should just bring like passing an empty list, because we won't want to pass in the images if the user has not selected. And also we want to programmatically open our file picker. So input in oh sorry, let's first try to use this input. Okay, input.click, so shall programmatically open the file picker dialog. So now you've seen we have just finished implementing our JS logic for the actual implementation of the image picker. So shall I try to run it and see how it looks like. Now after implementing our JS, we shall try to run it. Okay, we shall try to run it and see how we shall be able to see. So after running, you can try to pick images, and from now you can try to pick all images. So when you open it, to be able to display all the images. And as you can see, they have been loaded successfully. You can try to expand or even reduce. And yeah, our image picker is working well on the JS target. So shall proceed to the WASM target. But then for the WASM target has no much difference with the JS. So what we shall do, we shall just copy the whole of this code and shall navigate to the WASM target, and we just paste it. But then we shall see a few errors, within these ones. They're not available for WebAssembly, so we shall just remove them and shall declare new variables. So val result is equal to reader dot result. Okay, then we put an if result is array buffer, that is array buffer. So what will we do? So then first of all, we have to know that this one is used for the raw results from the file reader. Yeah, and also we have this if is also used for like expecting the binary data format. So we shall initialize another variable, call it int8 array, and this will be equaling to int8 array. Then we shall pass in a result that we declared earlier. Okay, result. Shall also declare another one, call it byte array, val byte array is equal to byte array, then we shall pass in an int8 dot length. Okay, then pass in a lambda function idx. So now we shall be able to see that what this does for it, it just views the buffer as signed bytes in this case. And for this one, we just have to pass in an input int8 array. Oh, it's giving us an error. Result reference. Okay, let's just try to pass in this and idx. So let's try to put a get function here, then we'll see if it will be able to change. Okay, dot get. Okay, hit enter. Yeah, I think we are good to go. When you come back, you'll see it have no error. So now we shall try to see that the whole of this line will be able to copy to Kotlin bytecode. So now we also have this one, which is for collecting all results. So we shall have to store the result in this case. So byte arrays dot add byte. Now we shall add a byte array because it takes in an element, which is a byte array in this case. So dot byte dot add dot, then we shall pass in a byte array. So now we've finished our implementation of our image picker for the WebAssembly. So now this should work, so this should work well as how we saw the JS target. So we shall try to run it and then see how it will be. So we shall pick the WebAssembly target and see how it will be displaying our image in this case. So we shall run it, then it will be able to display on and then we shall try to pick a few images and see how it will be able to display those images. So when we pick our images, we can pick the image. Okay, so it's H2. Oh, sorry, let's open it. So we can also remove it. Maybe you can also try to pick multiple images. Also try to pick multiple images. Okay, so yeah, now as you can see, the images have been picked in large quantities. So yeah, this marks the end of our video that was explaining how you can implement a multi-platform image picker.